You're not here by chance. This video doesn't reach someone who's merely scrolling or distracted. It appears at the moment something inside you begins to stir. Thoth, the ancient scribe of the gods, never revealed knowledge randomly. His wisdom emerged only when the soul was ready to receive it. And if this message has reached you now, it's because the time has come to remember who you truly are. For thousands of years, this understanding was locked inside symbols, rituals, and sacred stories, hidden, misunderstood, and lost to entire civilizations. Now, it's becoming available again. But not everyone will see it. Some will dismiss it. Others will feel the pull, but hesitate. Only those who are ready will be able to embody it fully. Magic was never about illusion or tricks. It was the mastery of unseen causes, the ability to work with forces so subtle that their results become unavoidable. And behind everything that exists, visible or invisible, there is an organizing intelligence. Thoth stands as the silent mediator of that force. The ancient Egyptians knew the universe was not born from randomness. Nothing existed without meaning. Nothing came into form without intent. Before creation, there was awareness. Before awareness could become reality, it had to be shaped into expression. That was Thoth's role. Not merely a recorder of divine will, but the living principle of sacred language itself, the bridge between thought and form, between the unseen and the world you can touch. On the Shabaka stone, one of the oldest records of Egyptian theology, there's an amazing detail. While Atum's heart generated the desire for creation, it was the tongue, symbolized by Thoth, that gave shape to that desire. The heart thinks, the tongue manifests, and Thoth is both. He represents the missing link between the invisible and the visible, between what isn't yet and what begins to be. And here's something interesting. When the Egyptians spoke of creation, they didn't talk about magic. They talked about rhythm, about order, about balance. Nothing was created chaotically. Everything followed a frequency, and Thoth was the guardian of that frequency. That's why he was also the god of time. Not the chronological time we're always chasing, but sacred time. The right time for everything to happen. The exact moment when a truth is born. The exact moment when the soul awakens. Can you grasp how deep that is? To them, speaking was a spiritual act. Every word, an alignment with the divine. Every sound made an invitation for the invisible to become matter. And all of that went through Thoth. The ibis, a bird that lives on quiet shores, is associated with the moon and with wisdom that watches without haste. It's no coincidence. The moon measures time in cycles, just like the awakening mind needs layers, phases, returns. Thoth isn't a god of instant answers. He's the one who watches your thoughts before they become choices, the one who observes your words before they shape destinies, the one who whispers when you finally go quiet inside. And that's what the ancient initiates knew, that it wasn't enough to think, it wasn't enough to want, it was necessary to align intention, word, time, and consciousness, because only when everything is in harmony does reality respond. And Thoth was there, silent, recording everything. Every misalignment, every tune-in, every moment the being drifted away, and every moment it found itself again. But what almost no one understands is that this pattern isn't trapped in ancient myths. It's active now. It pulses inside you. The same structure the Egyptians saw in the cosmos also exists in your mind, in your speech, in your vibration. And now, maybe for the first time, You're beginning to notice that creation was never something distant. It's always been something intimate. But if Thoth was the one who manifested God's thought, how can this sacred architecture be accessed by an ordinary human? How can that same structure of manifestation be activated within you? Here now, the word that creates is a conscious force. And this is where things start to get even deeper. Because when we talk about Thoth being the bridge between thought and reality, we're not talking about some poetic metaphor. We're talking about a real, spiritual, vibrational mechanism. You know that phrase from the Gospel of John, "In the beginning was the Word"? Yeah, that didn't originate in Christianity. It's an echo, a distant reverberation of something the Egyptians already knew thousands of years earlier. For them, the Word wasn't just any word. It was an active principle, a living force, something that doesn't just describe, but creates. And this is the part almost everyone overlooks. A word isn't just a sound. It's not just what comes out of your mouth. The word is vibration. The word is a subtle form of living geometry. It carries rhythm, intention, frequency, meaning, and above all, consequence. In ancient Egypt, everything was measured in terms of cosmic harmony. Thoth's role was to record the movements of universal order, what they called ma'at, and make sure nothing fell out of that flow. But that order wasn't imposed from the outside. It was born from the alignment between intention and expression. In other words, it wasn't enough to want something. It wasn't enough to feel something. It had to be aligned with the vibration of the word. Thoth didn't just write stories. He encoded what was behind them. He saw the invisible that gave rise to the visible. He noted the spiritual weight of every choice, every spoken sound, every thought turned into language, because he knew all creation begins with the word. But not just any word, the living word, the one that carries within it a conscious intention. That's why, in ancient initiations, before a disciple could learn magic, they had to learn silence, because the power of the word is no joke. When it's used unconsciously, it destroys. When used with awareness, it manifests. And now, stop and think for a second. How many words do you throw out each day without realizing it? How many times do you say things like, "My life is hard, nothing ever works out for me, I'm unlucky"? How many times do you repeat phrases that seem harmless but are actually programming your vibrational field like a reversed spell? Do you see it? You're not just talking, you're creating. With every sentence, you plant something, and the universe, which is responsive by nature, doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you vibrate. Thoth understood this perfectly. He didn't judge desires. He simply recorded vibrations. Because the universe doesn't operate on worthiness. It operates on coherence. What you say, with truth, with presence, with inner alignment, finds an echo. What you say out of habit, without soul, without attention, becomes noise. And noise within a living system becomes imbalance. That's why so many people live in conflict with their own reality. They say things that vibrate differently from what they feel. They desire the opposite of what they believe. They manifest what they fear the most, and then they think the world is against them. But it's not the world, it's the word, it's the frequency that's coming out from within them. And that frequency is shaping everything. Now, just imagine, what if you started to observe every word as a creative act? What if you treated your speech as a ritual? What if you realized that the way you talk about your life is exactly the way it's going to unfold? Would you still say what you say? Would you still use words carelessly, like an outlet, like an unconscious rant? Thoth never needed to shout. He only said what was necessary. And because of that, everything he said became real. Abracadabra, the echo of a lost code. And maybe you think you've heard all this before. Maybe you think you already know this story. But the truth is that one of the most powerful words ever created was turned into a joke, distorted, emptied, thrown into the realm of children's magic and superficial entertainment. Yes, we're talking about it. Abracadabra today. When you hear that word, you picture someone pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But what almost no one knows is that it comes from a sacred language, ancient Aramaic. Avracadabra literally translates to I create as I speak. It's not a spell. It's a principle, a forgotten key of sacred language, a formula that echoes the same spiritual foundation recognized by different initiatic cultures, including the vibrational roots of the Egyptians. Eliphas Levi, one of the most influential occultists of the 19th century, said that abracadabra wasn't a decorative word, but a symbol of spiritual geometry. In practical Kabbalah schools, it was written in the shape of an inverted triangle, losing one letter per line until only a dot remained. That image symbolized the collapse of creation into the center of the self, a reduction of creative energy to the core of its source, consciousness. And here's something essential. The power of the word doesn't lie in the language. It lies in the vibration. The sound itself carries a frequency. The tone, the rhythm, the intention, all of that is part of the formula. In the oldest spiritual traditions, among Chaldeans, Hebrews, and Egyptians, certain sounds were chanted not to impress, but to activate subtle realities. The word was used with reverence, with precision, with purpose. And maybe at this point you're starting to understand why Thoth is remembered not as a creator of magical formulas, but as a symbol of divine intelligence that connects the invisible to the visible, the one who represents the vibration that turns intention into form. Not because he invented these formulas, but because he designs the space where they can exist. And now, take a deep breath and think, how many words do you throw out every day without noticing? How many times do you say, my life is hard, I'm never lucky, this will never work, without realizing you're declaring your reality like someone casting a reverse spell, an inverted abracadabra? That's what shocks many when they wake up, realizing that the reality they live in wasn't forced from the outside. It was whispered quietly, daily, by their own voice. And that repetition shaped their field, their vibration, their destiny. But now you can start doing it differently. You can start speaking differently, not like someone trying to affirm something they don't feel, but like someone beginning to remember that speech is one of the most direct bridges between spirit and the world. And maybe, just maybe, that word that seems silly, almost childish, is a fragment of a much older system, a manifestation code that was diluted over time, hidden among symbols, scattered across different cultures, but that can still be reactivated. And what if that code is just a doorway? What if there's something even greater hidden right beyond it? The Book of Thoth, between the gift and the doom. In the records of Egypt from the Ptolemaic period, an ancient text known as the Tale of Setnachaimwaz and Nanefakapta reveals a story that at first glance seems like a legend, but carries a message far too deep to ignore. According to the text, there was a hidden book, a book attributed to Thoth, kept in a chest surrounded by serpents, sealed with spells and layers of protection, and inside it, two spells, The first allowed one to hear the speech of animals and control the skies, waters, and earth. The second, even more dangerous, allowed one to see the gods themselves. But what happened to those who dared to touch it before they were ready? Naneferkaptah found the book. He broke the seals. He read the spells. And because of that, he lost what was most precious to him. His son died. His wife died. And even though he kept the book with his own body in his tomb, he couldn't escape the price. Years later, Setna, drawn by the promise of power, sought the same book. And again, the consequence was immediate. His mind was overtaken by illusions, his family put at risk, and his soul nearly dragged into ruin. Do you see how serious this is? It wasn't just about a magical object. The book was symbolic, a mirror. It didn't grant power. It revealed whether the soul was in a condition to sustain it. And if the ego was greater than the awareness, the knowledge itself became destruction. The teaching isn't in the spell, nor in the invocation. It's in the posture of the one who approaches the mystery, because no wisdom can survive in arrogant hands, and no sacred gift can remain with someone who seeks it out of vanity. This is true initiation, to be touched by the mystery without being consumed by it. And maybe this book, so sought after by kings, magicians, and priests, was never a literal object. Maybe it represents a state of access, a level of inner vibration where certain truths finally reveal themselves. But for that to happen, something must break. Not outside of you, inside. And that's where we begin to understand Thoth's role as the one who observes, records, and balances, not as someone who judges, but as someone who shows the exact reflection of what each soul is vibrating. In the Book of the Dead, Thoth appears in one of the most iconic scenes in Egyptian tradition. The newly departed soul is brought to the Hall of Judgment. At the center of the scene, a scale. On one side, the feather of Ma'at, the symbol of cosmic truth. On the other, the heart of the deceased. And Thoth is the one who writes down the result. But here's the detail that changes everything. This judgment doesn't start after death. It's already happening now. With every thought you accept as truth, with every word you repeat without awareness, with every emotion you feed day after day, all of that is being recorded not by a distant God, but in your own vibrational field. And the scale is still there, not as punishment, but as a mirror, because the reality you live is not random. It's the reading of what's written inside you. Life doesn't respond to what you wish for. It responds to what you are. And the cruelest or most liberating part of that truth is that most people try to change the outside world without ever asking what's being broadcast from within. You can repeat positive affirmations all day long, but if your vibration is rooted in fear, anger, scarcity, the scale doesn't lie. The judgment isn't out there. It's right here, in the way you live, in the way you think, in the way you react to the world. And it's not Thoth who punishes you. It's the very frequency you hold that decides what stays or what collapses. Manifestation is not a wish, it's a tuning. And this is the point where most people get stuck. Because your whole life, you were taught to want. To want a car, a job, love, healing, a way out. But almost no one taught you how to tune in. In the tradition of Kabbalah, one of the oldest and deepest schools of wisdom in the world, the concept of manifestation is completely different from the logic of modern desire. There, the verb to manifest doesn't mean forcing reality to obey. It means aligning it with what's already true inside you. The word Kabbalah comes from the Hebrew Kabul, which means to receive. And here's the secret. You only receive what you're in tune with, not what you beg for, not what you visualize for 5 minutes and forget right after, but what pulses inside you in a coherent and consistent way. According to the Tree of Life, the spiritual map of Kabbalah, the reality we live in is called Malkuth, the kingdom. It's the densest plane, what we can touch, matter. But nothing reaches Malkuth out of nowhere. Before something becomes real, it has to go through a vibrational chain. It starts all the way up in Keter, the crown, the point of origin, passes through Binah, the structure of intention, goes down through Tiferet, the heart center where emotional truth lives, arrives in Yesod, the foundation, the word as a channeling form, and only then manifests here in Malkuth. And that's the path of creation. And it's no coincidence that this path resonates with what the Egyptian schools taught in the initiatic rituals connected to Thoth. Nothing is created directly in matter. Everything is a sequence, a journey, a process. And if somewhere along that chain you break the coherence, if the intention isn't aligned with the emotion, if the emotion doesn't vibrate with the word, what reaches reality is a distortion. That's why so many people wish and don't manifest, because what you want is clashing with what you vibrate. What you think is at war with what you feel. And in that inner conflict, your vibrational field becomes unstable. Manifestation gets stuck. You don't create what you want. You create what you're ready to sustain. Reality is just the reflection of the inner structure you feed every day. So now, here's the question. Are you trying to manifest from the anxiety of wanting something, or from the coherence between mind, emotion, intention, and presence? Because if everything's out of alignment, it doesn't matter how much you ask. What comes will always be fragmented. And at this point, we step into another ancient symbol that holds more wisdom than it seems. 5 syllables, abracadabra. 5 points, the pentagram. 5 elements, earth, water, air, fire, and ether. For centuries, the pentagram was used as a symbol of protection, of harmony, of integration of the elements within the self. Pythagoras used it as sacred geometry, and medieval alchemists adopted it as a spiritual formula. But almost no one understands what it really means. It's not just a star. It's a reminder that the spirit must be at the center and that the elements must spin in balance around it. Each point represents a force. Earth, your body, your structure, your grounding. Water, your emotions, your memory, your sensitivity. Air, your thoughts, your ideas, your mind. Fire, your action, your passion, your life force. And at the top, ether, consciousness, the invisible that gives life to everything. The pentagram is you. You at the center of the universe. You as a microcosm of the all. You as a walking temple. But it's not enough to just know that. You have to activate it. And the activation doesn't happen through technique. It happens through presence. When you honor each element within yourself, when you care for your earth, purify your water, calm your air, direct your fire, and reconnect with your spirit. In that moment, the star is no longer outside. It pulses within you, and the word you speak, even silently, becomes creative. But every structure needs a base. And even the pentagram needs to be supported by something. Because if there's no root, any symbol becomes just decoration, and any knowledge turns into just another pretty theory. You are the last tablet, the message that Thoth writes now. And that's where a lot of people get lost. Because after discovering the power of the word, the temptation is to use it without measure, to say everything, reveal everything, repeat, teach, affirm. But the ancients knew that not every truth is ready to be spoken. And the more sacred something is, the more silence it requires around it. In the Egyptian mysteries, the sacred word was always surrounded by ritual silence, not as censorship, but as protection, not to hide, but to preserve. Thoth, as a symbol of the intelligence that manifests the invisible, also represents the intelligence that knows when to be silent, because before the creative word comes the fertile silence, before sound comes the space where the sound will vibrate, and that space needs to be clean. That's why initiates took a vow of silence. It wasn't a vow of fear, it was a vow of alignment. They knew that speech born from an impatient ego, a restless mind, or a wounded heart creates nothing. It only confuses, only dilutes, only spreads noise. But speech that is born from silence, that one crosses dimensions. That's why the great masters always spoke little, not because they knew less, but because they knew too much to waste it on ears that weren't ready yet. Because every word has a price, and every sacred word, spoken with awareness, opens portals. Portals of understanding, portals of healing, portals of revelation. That's why Thoth didn't speak to impress. He spoke to inscribe, to leave a mark where there had only been chaos. And maybe you feel that now. This silent moment between understanding and transformation. That exact point where something inside you understands that it's no longer about speaking what you know, but about living what you remembered. And this is the point in the journey where everything changes, because what used to be a search becomes recognition, and what used to be a path becomes a mirror. You're no longer trying to find the book of Thoth. You realize it's in that book that you've been written. The revelation isn't in the papyrus. It's not in the stone. It's here, in your body that vibrates, in your heart that awakens, in your consciousness that aligns. You are the last tablet. You are the space where the final message is being written. Because Thoth, as a symbol of cosmic order, didn't leave formulas. He left paths, and those paths open when you realize you no longer need to chase signs. You are the sign. You're not searching anymore. You're remembering. And if this remembrance found you now, it's because the time has come. You didn't find this video by accident. You didn't stumble upon these words by chance. You didn't feel that shiver for no reason. It's because the time has come not to manifest what you want, but to manifest who you truly are. Now that you've made it this far, you might be asking yourself, so now what? What can I do with all of this? Because awakening without action is just another distraction. And you didn't come this far to get stuck in just another pretty concept. You came to remember, to integrate, to transform. So take a deep breath, and let's bring all of this down to earth. If there's one thing that became clear in this journey, it's that manifestation is not an act of wanting. It's an alignment of vibration. It's a state of coherence between what you think, feel, say, and live. And that's not built in a day. But it can start today with something simple. I'm going to give you now a daily practice inspired by the principles that flowed through this video. From the wisdom of Thoth to the structure of the tree of life, from the power of the word to the silence that comes before it. It's not a magic formula, it's a vibrational practice, and the more you repeat it with awareness, the more your field starts to shift. Before starting your day, spend 2 minutes in complete silence. No phone, no to-do list. Just sit, breathe, watch your mind, let the thoughts pass, without grabbing onto any of them. This space creates the inner ether, the subtle element where your word will have power. Now choose one single affirmative phrase to repeat with presence, but not just any phrase. It has to reflect what you want to sustain, not what you want to achieve. Example: my consciousness guides my reality. I only speak what I'm ready to live. I am one with the invisible order that holds the whole. Say it out loud 3 times, with your body upright, with your feet on the ground, with your eyes closed. Feel the vibration of the phrase spreading inside you. Now, perform a simple action with full presence. It could be making coffee, making the bed, lighting a candle. But do it as if you're writing a new line in your own book of Thoth, with intention, with care, as if every gesture is being recorded in the universe, because it is. Throughout your day, start paying attention to your words, not to suppress yourself, but to take ownership. When you catch yourself saying something that doesn't reflect who you're becoming, pause, breathe, say it again, this time with clarity and intention. You don't need to be spiritual or mystical to do this. Just remember one thing: your words shape your inner world, and whatever you keep repeating eventually becomes your reality. That's the real meaning behind ancient ideas like abracadabra. That's the hidden symbol behind Thoth's scale. True manifestation begins with speech, but only what you can hold, sustain, and live will actually take form. So, treat your words with respect. Let silence be the place where they are refined, and let your life become proof that spirituality isn't something distant or abstract. It's practical, it's lived, it's happening right now. Practice this for 7 days with real awareness. You'll feel the shift, and once you do, it becomes impossible to return to living on autopilot. Because when you experience life with coherence, merely surviving is no longer enough. So ask yourself, are you ready to live what you speak? And before you go, if this message resonated with you and you want to help this channel reach more people, there's a direct way to support it. You'll find the contribution link in the first pinned comment. Your support helps this message travel further. The truth is spreading, and you're part of it. I'll see you in the next video.